Behind the Los Angeles riots is the influence of the Chinese Communist Party. Tang Baiqiao, a prominent leader in the US-based Chinese pro-democracy movement, wrote on X saying, "Was this a spontaneous protest? Are these just regular Americans? Why are they all young men? And why do they look like foreigners? When they put on military uniforms, they're soldiers. We must expose the hidden hand behind the Los Angeles riot and severely punish those responsible." He emphasized that this was no ordinary protest, but rather something orchestrated by foreign and dark domestic forces, aiming to create chaos in America. Otherwise, ordinary citizens wouldn't have marched in unison, waving foreign flags. America is being invaded by foreign powers in this new form. If the situation continues to worsen, the U.S. government should declare a state of emergency, crack down on the criminals, and restore peace. On the surface, the situation appeared very chaotic. President Trump deployed the National Guard, and there were intense street confrontations with the protesters. Media opposing Trump criticized the government for using non-lethal weapons like rubber bullets and tear gas. On the other hand, media that supported Trump argued that this was not a peaceful protest, but an organized and premeditated riot. Videos and photos circulating on social media showed protesters attacking law enforcement officers with gasoline and rocks. Some even set fire to police cars and American flags, while others took advantage of the chaos to loot. Among the rioters, some were even seen wearing the Communist Party's blood-red flag. On June 9th, Trump made two shocking posts. The first said, "Looking really bad in LA, bring in the troops." Then, as both president and commander-in-chief, Trump issued a direct order, "Arrest the people in face masks now." Who was he referring to? The individuals in the photos wearing masks, waving foreign flags, and ignoring U.S. laws while destroying property in Los Angeles. Looking at the different perspectives from U.S. media outlets, it's easy to become overwhelmed by the variety of perspectives. So what really happened in Los Angeles these past 2 days? And when did the riot start? The Los Angeles riot began last week when U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, arrested over 100 illegal immigrants in several parts of the city, including 5 gang members. Then, starting Friday, June 6th, over 1,000 people suddenly surrounded an immigration building and began attacking ICE agents. They destroyed buildings and facilities. Among the rioters, many were masked. On June 7th, a major riot broke out near Paramount in Los Angeles. A federal agent was injured, and several attackers were arrested. One of the locations involved was a Home Depot, where many illegal immigrants gather. It was discovered that vehicles were specifically distributing wooden planks, shields, and other items to the protesters, suggesting that the situation was organized and purposeful. During the arrests, ICE agents were attacked with rocks and concrete blocks. Numerous law enforcement vehicles had their windows smashed. There were even reports that one ICE agent nearly lost their life. The violence quickly spiraled out of control. One person filmed a protester who was wearing a helmet. They used a rock to smash a law enforcement vehicle. This individual is now being sought by the FBI with a $50,000 reward. Further away in the photo, other people are seen throwing rocks at vehicles. By the evening of June 7th, the situation worsened. California's governor had done nothing, and Los Angeles' mayor was standing against the immigration agents. As a result, the situation in Los Angeles spiraled into a large-scale riot. In response to the unrest, President Donald Trump issued the deployment of 2,000 National Guard troops. This decision was made without the consent of California Governor Gavin Newsom. Newsom condemned the move as a violation of state sovereignty and pledged to sue the federal government over the deployment. Governor Newsom described the federal intervention as unconstitutional and immoral, emphasizing that such actions should not be taken without consulting state leadership. The riot in Los Angeles was clearly organized. People noticed something very obvious. The protesters were all young men, and the flags they were carrying were all foreign flags. The protest was highly coordinated, with chants that had clearly been practiced beforehand. There were many people carrying the Mexican flag, but very few American ones. The American media outlets were questioning why these protesters, who seemed to love their home country so much, didn't support the idea of the U.S. government sending illegal immigrants back home. On June 9th, Chinese citizen Tao Jun commented, "The foreigner riot in Los Angeles started today with them setting police cars on fire. The governor and attorney general of California lied, saying that they were peaceful protests. Most of them were holding Mexican flags. In reality, it's the invasion of the U.S. by foreigners, with a victory pledge to occupy Los Angeles. President Trump said we need to liberate Los Angeles and expel these foreigners and illegal immigrants." While left-wing American media still describe the Los Angeles riots as peaceful protests, not only are Americans incredulous, but even the Los Angeles police chief came out to admit there are professional left-wing anarchist organizations fueling the violence. Joshua Phillip, a senior investigative reporter with the Epoch Times, reported from the scene on June 9th. He said that the so-called protesters were using walkie-talkies to coordinate the actions. He believes the protests were organized. He said, "The protesters communicate with each other. I saw it with my own eyes. They direct different protesters to specific locations. They told them to go to the spot where the car was set on fire, so they have a coordination mechanism." Two groups have been exposed as the driving forces behind the riots. One is a radical group connected to the Democratic Party, the California Human Rights Immigration Rights Alliance, CHIRLA, and the other is the Socialist and Liberation Party, which has ties to the Chinese Communist Party. According to a report by the New York Post on June 9th, the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, which received tens of millions of dollars in government funding during the Biden administration, organized a protest last week condemning ICE for arresting illegal immigrants throughout the city, including those who had committed serious crimes. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security revealed that since this protest, anti-ICE demonstrations have escalated, with over 1,000 rioters taking to the streets. According to financial records obtained by Data Republican, the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights received nearly $34 million in government funding for the fiscal year ending in June 2023. The funds primarily came from California, marking a significant increase from the $12 million they received the previous year. A spokesperson for the organization denied any involvement with the violence. They told the New York Post on June 8th, "We have not participated, coordinated, or been part of the protests being registered in Los Angeles other than the press conference and rally cited above." The New York Post also reported that another group accused of driving the protests is the Marxist-aligned Socialist Liberation Party. The organization had previously been involved in intense anti-Israel campus protests at Columbia University and had connections to Elias Rodriguez, a gunman linked to terrorist attacks in Washington, D.C. According to a 2024 report from the Network Contagion Research Institute at Rutgers University, the Socialist Liberation Party has ties to the Chinese Communist Party, with funding provided by Neville Singham and his wife. A self-identified socialist and a fan of Mao Zedong, has been a significant financial backer of pro-CCP propaganda. In 2023, he even attended a CCP propaganda seminar as a guest speaker. A 2023 report from the New York Times revealed that Neville Singham and his wife, along with Jody Evans, the founder of the radical group Code Pink, funneled millions of dollars into nonprofit organizations promoting Chinese government-friendly initiatives. Their funding network spans globally from South Africa, Ghana, Zambia to Brazil and New Delhi. After selling his software company, ThoughtWorks, for $785 million in 2017, Singham invested heavily in supporting pro-CCP groups. During the recent Los Angeles riots, there were also sightings of individuals proudly displaying communist flags with the sickle and hammer symbol. Additionally, people noticed something shocking. The famous Antifa group has started moving into Los Angeles. Even left-wing media like CNN's Frontline reporters observed that the protesters now are not the same as those who originally protested. It seems that the organizers behind the scenes have begun sending in Antifa to escalate the violence. To ordinary Americans, Antifa and Black Lives Matter seem indistinguishable. Both are street thugs who loot, burn, and destroy, even attacking historical statues. During Trump's first term, in late May 2020, after the death of George Floyd in Minnesota, nationwide protests were led by these organizations. In Portland, right up until the election, violent demonstrations dominated them, with both BLM and Antifa involved. At the time, there were suspicions that Chinese agents might be fueling the protests, and Trump specifically pointed out Antifa. In a piece published by Hong Kong's Apple Daily, columnist Huang Shizhe remarked that these riots clearly had the shadow of the Chinese Communist Party behind them. Everything from the protest locations to the escalation of the situation, even involving Antifa, reflected the CCP's potential involvement in using unrestricted warfare tactics against Trump. Antifa is a group that originated in Germany. It began as an armed anti-fascist movement under the German Communist Party in the 1930s. It went underground after the Nazi Party took over. After World War II, East Germany's Antifa was absorbed by the East German Communist Party, while the West German faction became a part of the Soviet-led far-left activities. In the 1970s, Antifa's banner was taken up by Maoist groups, including Chinese organizations, and in the 1970s to 1980s, it mainly targeted the Ku Klux Klan. Thus, the American Antifa clearly has historical ties to the CCP. Huang Shizhe noted that this is part of Xi Jinping following in footsteps by exporting revolution. He analyzed that after the end of the Cold War, Antifa groups in the US, Germany, and other places became scattered due to a lack of funding from the Soviet Union or China. Since Deng Xiaoping took over, China had already abandoned the policy of exporting revolution. However, after Xi Jinping came to power, the Belt and Road Initiative, along with China's interference in elections and internal affairs of many countries, reflected Xi's return to Mao Zedong-era policies. Therefore, whether Antifa was originally organized by Chinese Americans or infiltrated by China, it is clear that China is using these methods against the U.S. This, combined with projects like the Thousand Talents Plan, shows the extensive infiltration of China's networks in the U.S. Antifa is likely one part of it. Trump's mention of Antifa and his intention to label the group as a terrorist organization is not without reason. Videos have been circulating that Chinese operatives within the protesters might be speaking in Chinese to direct their actions. Regarding recent events in Los Angeles, opinions online are divided. Some question the label of riot. In response, pro-democracy leader Tang Baiqiao said, "If this is not a riot, I don't know what is, especially those little pinks who have crossed the wall to protest. If this happened in China, would you support these rioters? Would you dare? Don't say you're confused, you're just a group of rotten people. What's worse are those so-called pro-democracy activists in the US who shout peace, reason, and nonviolence in China, but support riots here. Please open your eyes." On June 8th, after violent incidents erupted on the third day of protests, the Los Angeles police declared downtown LA as an illegal assembly zone and ordered protesters to go home. Border Patrol Chief Tom Homan pointed out that with federal law enforcement agencies restarting Trump-era actions against illegal immigration, Los Angeles saw another outbreak of violence last Friday, with around 150 people arrested. According to Fox News, the FBI has launched an investigation into individuals involved in organizing the riots, assaulting federal officers, or destroying government property. The Los Angeles police continues to arrest those involved in the illegal assembly. Federal officials noted that the protests also involved groups like the Service Employees International Union, CHIRLA, and PSL. SEIU California President David Horta was arrested for illegally obstructing ICE enforcement, but has since been released. SEIU posted on X saying, "Militarized tactics have no place in our communities." The organization had previously announced it would invest $200 million to support Democratic candidates, including Kamala Harris's presidential campaign in 2024. Elon Musk, who had a public fallout with Trump earlier, also expressed support for how Trump is handling the riots. On Sunday night, Musk shared a post from Trump on Truth Social, criticizing the California governor and Los Angeles mayor for mishandling the riots. While Musk didn't add any comment, this move was seen as supporting Trump. He also shared a statement from Vice President J.D. Vance, emphasizing that the president cannot tolerate violence and riots, accompanied by 2 American flags. In response to a photo of protesters standing on a burning car, Musk wrote that it is not acceptable. Although Musk had opposed Trump's Big Beautiful Bill, leading to a heated exchange between the two, they quickly toned down their rhetoric. Musk even deleted some of his more extreme tweets. Veteran commentator Cao Changqing mentioned on X that the fallout between Musk and Trump didn't escalate as far-left media expected, and instead, it seems to have found a resolution. Meanwhile, amid the riots in the U.S., Chinese state media intensively reported on the situation, claiming that not only Los Angeles but at least 30 other protests are planned across the U.S. Hu Xijing, former editor of Chinese Global Times, even mockingly commented on the internal conflict between the American political parties. Independent commentator Du Zheng believes that the Chinese Communist Party's anti-American ideology will not change. Although it may sometimes soften for political reasons, the CCP has long stuck to the slogan, "Imperialism's desire to destroy us never dies." On the surface, this may seem to reflect the CCP's internal crisis, but it also shows their ambition not only to rule China with dictatorship, but also to dominate the world, which is why Xi Jinping promotes the so-called community of shared human destiny. Du warns that if the US doesn't wake up and counteract now, it will be too late.